What we're talking about today is maximizing your online giving. We have some presentation that we're going to go through. I am Cynthia McChesney, Missioner of Stewardship and Legacy Giving with the Diocese. I'll do a little advertisement right now. Please, at the very end, you'll see my email address. You probably all have my email address because I don't know how else you would have found this. Just feel free to reach out with questions about stewardship. I see Pat Yankus right there, who's on our teaching team, stewardship teaching team, and Ross Wisniewski, and of course, with everybody in the bishop's office to provide, helpful stewardship resources to all of you. And we do these things, the Stewardship in the Moment, which are these sort of hands-on workshops periodically. I'm really interested in hearing other topics that you'd like us to sort of dive into. With me today is Peter Johnson, who is senior giving. I always want to call you Peter Jackson, Peter, because we have a Peter Jackson archdeacon in the diocese. So you may have another side to you. Peter Johnson, who is
I've been called worse.
Senior Giving Advisor in the faith arena for Vanco payments. And many of you may well have, come across Peter because I know that many of our churches are Vanco clients. Peter, if you could tell a little bit about Vanco while you're doing that, I'm going to share my screen. So why don't we just have you give a little talk about Vanco first?
Well, first and foremost, I appreciate the opportunity. Anytime I can gather with kind of the point people in a consolidated fashion, it makes things a lot easier, hopefully for everyone involved. And, you hear questions that maybe you had not really thought of, and we're able to address them as well. To give you kind of the elevator pitch as to what is Vanco. Vanco has been in existence for now a quarter century, founded in 1998, in the express purpose of organizing and assisting faith-based organizations, churches, anything kind of affiliated vicariously, and nonprofits. Right now, we're currently working with probably upwards of over 25,000 churches currently, and probably in the neighborhood of anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 nonprofits. And because of that, we've really kind of pride ourselves in kind of keeping our ears to the ground and making sure that we're adapting our systems to really resonate with churches as to what they're looking for. As many of you may have seen, and it may come up in discussion today or this evening, as we've done a recent kind of evolution in the last couple of years where we've really increased our functionality, but also the aesthetics as it relates to the user experience, both from a visual and functional perspective. And that's something that I think we'll address in terms of really maximizing everything that's going on within your current donation portfolio.
That's awesome. Thank you, Peter. There we go. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to do a brief overview of online giving. And basically, I'm going to be talking a fair amount. Peter, I'm going to ask you to jump in. And as you see that you can add to what I'm saying. I also would, again, ask folks to be thinking about your questions and certainly be using the chat. So today we're going to do an overview of online giving because it's one of those things that we talk about and we don't necessarily know all the different areas of online giving. We're going to talk about the give button and how important it is to make it prominent. We're going to talk about minimizing steps and clicks for donors. These are all ways to make it easier for people to give, to have fewer people abandon, give up, not ever bother, and never tell anyone else how easy it is to give using your online services. We're going to talk about the taking advantage of the free Vanco upgrade, the aesthetics that Peter mentioned. We'll sort of go into a little more detail about maximizing the effectiveness of those Vanco tiles. We'll talk with some hands-on about QR codes and links that will help direct donors to your giving page. We'll discuss some quick tips to help increase giving among online worshipers, and we don't want to forget Facebook. Now, I do want to say, Peter's here, right? He's from Vanco. This will tend to be pretty Vanco heavy, this conversation. I
Hmm.
know there are churches out there in our diocese who are there are a couple of churches still not doing online giving. If you're on this call, what an awesome call for you to be on, right? Because you're going to learn all about online giving. There are also some churches who don't use Vanco. I think many of the recommendations we're going to give that are not very much specific to Vanco will still be specific to other providers. So I stick around, even if you're not, and you may decide that you want to switch. So, that's your decision.
We're open to that.
Okay. So online giving is a convenient way to receive gifts. Convenient is really the key word here. An online giving provider enables your church to accept donations through various means, including credit or debit cards, direct bank transfers, electronic banking services. Let me put us so you can see me. I use my phone, right? I use my phone all the time. What I've been using is my phone to send checks. But now I realize, because I finally listened to the advice that I've been giving to people, that by logging into Vanco, I can use ACH, which is also under the umbrella of online giving. I do think that often folks might think that online giving is only, I think folks may think that online giving, you have to use credit cards for it. You do not have to use credit cards for it. So let me go through a couple of these bullets, and then Peter, I'd love it if you would talk a little bit about ACH for folks.
Yeah, and real quickly, somebody just popped up a question. ACH is nothing but an automated withdrawal from a checking or savings account.
So you do not have, you use it. Online giving includes credit cards, debit cards, and online giving using direct bank transfers, which is ACH, what is it? Automated clearinghouse transfer, I think is what it stands for.
Exactly. Yep.
So the big benefits for folks are it's easy, and it gives your donors and guests, visitors to your site or visitors to your church, different ways to make a gift. We all, many of us don't have checks anymore. We don't have cash. It just gives us many more payment options. There's anytime, anywhere access. Donors can make a gift anytime, anywhere they have internet access, whether it's on their phone or their computer. And this is actually something that we might want to talk to our parishioners about as well. It provides very convenient record keeping for the parishioners. I know that it is our goal to get statements out to our parishioners, our pledgers, frequent. Ideally, we should be doing quarterly statements. Not everybody is able to get those quarterly statements out. Well, the more parishioners you have using their own online, using Vanco or particularly, they're able to really track their payments easily. So it is, you would have less frustration, I think, on the part of the parishioner. Peter, can you talk a little bit about ACH and how easy, or maybe talk a little bit about credit and debit and ACH?
Sure. So as Cynthia posed, there's two ways that you can donate: through a credit card or through a bank account. I can tell you that the ACH for the majority of churches is the bulk of what they're receiving. On average, it's about 60% of all received contributions. Just speculating, I would think it's a matter of convenience and being able to budget a little bit more effectively. There are some people that obviously are using credit cards because it's more convenient for them, or they've got Sky Miles, cash back, whatever. So it's a win-win. But again, in either instance, it provides you the means to donate anywhere, anytime, in the moment. And then from the parish's perspective, you would want to encourage the ACH contributions because of the lower processing fee or processing rate. So again, that can become a win-win for both the donor and the parish itself. In terms of the record keeping aspect, as Cynthia was going through that, I'm just thinking there's so many ripple effects in terms of benefiting kind of the entire business model of the church. It's not just a financial windfall. It provides, again, that convenience for the donor to have complete autonomy over their donation profile, be able to look back as they'll get emailed receipts for every single contribution. And then from a budgeting perspective for the individual parishes, you're not just beholden to say, hey, this is what we've gotten year to date. It allows you to look forward and say, okay, over the next 3 to 6 months, this is what we have planned for recurring giving. And as we enter, past the Lenten season and Easter and ease into that summer swoon, having that baseline a little bit higher can make things a lot less tenuous for maybe some smaller churches or things of that nature. So again, there's ripple effects within the business model well beyond just the financial ramifications that you're going to find convenience in. It could be the integration capabilities with your church management software, or it could just be being able to get a more steady stream of donations and eliminating those donation gaps, because that's really where the online giving kind of provides its credence.
Right. So a key improvement too that I think many of us can make. I've been snooping through many of our church websites over the past few days with this particularly in mind. And there's a key improvement. Now, many of you have, it's not everybody, but this is a really important thing. Your give button, please consider enhancing give button visibility. The give button or the donate button, whatever you call it on your site, that button should be easy to find on the home page, preferably in the main navigation bar across the top. At a minimum, it should be in the top portion of the screen. You should not have to scroll for it. When the give button, and I'm going to show it to you in a minute, when the give button is on the navigation bar, it moves with the viewer through the site, right? So that it's always going to be there. It's available to the parishioner. You should also check your mobile display and ensure that the button is easy to access on your phones. And, to enhance its visibility, I have to say not many people, well, some of our churches are doing this. You might consider making it a different color. We do have this tendency to have very subtle websites, sort of aesthetically pleasing. And then we have these sort of subtle, navigation bars with, pale colors. Well, it would be, maybe just make that one change to make the give button orange or a different color. Generally red, I think there's research that shows that people, red has some connotations that people don't like as much with financials, as you can imagine. So I would suggest maybe orange. So here's one of our churches. It is not, now while the giving button is not red, it's right there, right? So it's easy to find. You're not going to have to go searching for it. We have another church that, they're laid out similar to this, but when you get over to the far side, it says more, and then you click on more, and underneath more, you can find the giving. That means someone has to search for it. So the much better thing is to move your giving button right up here to the upper navigation bar. It's not difficult to do. I understand that different churches have set up their websites in different ways. Our office, Nina Nicholson, has the technology committee. And if you're really not able to figure out who set up your website or you need help with that, Nina is certainly, and her team is certainly able to help you. Along with that, the fact that you don't want to have to make people look for the give button. I would also, and this works for all kinds of industries, right? Not just giving to churches, not just giving to nonprofits, but for any kind of commercial operation. Minimize steps and clicks for donors. The more things people have to do to give you money, the less likely you are that they're going to continue to with that transaction, because they get distracted. We have attention spans of like 12 seconds now, right? So if we haven't, if we can't finish the thing that we got started, we may just abandon it. So we always want to enable people who are feeling, they're feeling responsive to God's generosity, and they are wanting to be generous to their church. Let's not put any blocks in place for that kind of, for that good energy to do it. So what I would say is look at your page, look at your site, find the give button, find it, make sure and then move it if you have to, then click through and see how long it takes to get to the giving page. Peter, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think everything you're saying is absolutely spot on, because it's cross vertical. It doesn't really matter if you're searching online for something else. You want it to be easy. And I'm a sales guy. I'm not a tech guy. I'll get frustrated right away and I won't find it. And I do the same kind of research that you do in looking at various websites, numerous times during the day. And it just boggles my mind, as sometimes they'll have it on like the second or third page. They'll have it all the way at the bottom. And I'm like, nobody's really going that far. And with the ability to have that link prominently displayed on top, and it'll take you directly to the donation page, to me just seems common sense. And because you never really know how many people are getting frustrated and stepping away because they're having difficulty finding it, or it's a multiple click scenario. So by all means, it's as important as many other things within the church. It's just kind of viewed a little differently because it's got a financial connotation. But by the same token, it's still part of the lifeblood of the church, and very important to be able to direct your donations in an expedited fashion. And most important of all, the keep it simple motto of anything that we're looking to do. We're not looking to complicate things. Again, from the technical standpoint, we're not dealing with the most technical vertical or a demographic in the world, me included. And if you can make it a one-click scenario as opposed to a hide and seek, it's going to make a world of difference to your bottom line and also to the acceptance of online giving.
And I think that this also speaks to a suggestion I made recently in the Stewardship Matters newsletter, which is to do it yourself, right? So anybody who is warden, stewardship chair, treasurer, finance, parish administrator, clergy, if you're still writing checks, that's awesome. Go ahead and continue writing checks, but also log in to your church's online giving and make sure that you know how to do it. Make a sample gift if you insist on, just do it so that you can see how easy it is. And that way also you can teach other people, talk to other people, speak from your own experience. Now, let me see. We actually have this one. This is a church. This is, I've mentioned before that some of our churches have been Vanco clients for quite a while and are using something that is the old form, right? So this was the form. It was very straightforward. We have churches who are still using this form, but they don't need to be using this form. They can use the free upgrade. And the free upgrade means that you end up with something that looks like this. Again, I'm going to pass this over to Peter. Peter, do you want to talk a little bit about how we go from that to that? Now, to me, I have to say, Peter, and you're going to have to deal with this, that looks intimidating, right? If someone came to me and said, I hear we can do this, fancy thing with these new photos and stuff. I don't want it to look like this anymore. And instead it can look like this. I'd be intimidated. Yep. Can you tell me whether I should be intimidated or not?
No, not by the longest stretch of the imagination, because I'll tell you, as I mentioned, we actually rolled this out in September of 2020 in the midst of the pandemic of all things. And being where I am in my life, I'm like, okay, because I was well versed on the other version. I was like, I got to blow the dust off my brain and try and figure this out. When they presented us our demonstration sites to be able to actually provide demonstrations for churches, I did the first run through myself, and I just literally, I pushed myself away from the desk. And it's like, I cannot believe this. Within 15 minutes, I would have created this entire page as it looks right now. And I didn't exert any additional knowledge than I already had. And I said to myself, it's like, if I can do this, there's not a church in the country that can't handle this. Because it will be the first to admit, our old Give Plus version was somewhat archaic. It was extremely functional, but again, it just didn't have the sensibility of the church and the aesthetic of the church. And then looking at kind of the way contributions are being allocated currently, you know, the church overall has gone from about 25, 30 years ago of being half of all charitable contributions down to about, you know, a third, I believe, about 32, 33%, as there's many more options out there. But what we kind of pinpointed is that the ability to message to your mission has become a critical thought entry as to how people direct their charitable contributions. As nonprofits have been reliant completely on that kind of mantra, because they don't have the benefit of a weekly offertory or things of that nature. So being able to incorporate in that, and this one could be, you know, even a little bit more elaborate in kind of stating, this is what this fund is going for. This is what it's done in the past. Really resonates with people, because in terms of the younger generations, they're much more discerning as to where they direct things, because they want to know where their money is going. I'll give you a kind of a brief anecdote. There's a book called Not Your Parents' Offertory Plate. And within there, there's a good analogy as it relates to a story of a gentleman, a well-to-do gentleman entering into retirement, wants to make a large endowment, either to his alma mater, university, or to his church. And he met with the pastor, he met with the dean, and kind of went through everything. And at the end of the day, he ended up giving to his alma mater. And the pastor came to him and said, I don't understand. I thought you've been a member here for so many years and all this other stuff. And he said, yeah, but they told me exactly where it was going to. They showed me blueprints. They said, this is how your money's going to benefit others, and so forth. And so now the ability to incorporate that at the church can really be a game changer. So I would highly encourage people to make the transition to Vanco Online. There's no cost. You get all the support and assistance you need from our client support team. And once you make that change in iteration, the system is actually a lot easier to use, both for the donors and for the church.
You know, a thing that I have noticed is we do have a number of our churches are using the Vanco Online, right? They're using the tiles. Some of our churches are not doing as much, I think, to personalize the images, because Vanco has great photography available. And, you know, I think perhaps people are thinking it's better to use the professional photography than to use, you know, something that they think is not as attractive. I actually would say, I think it's really a good idea to go in and use your own photography. We all have these magic, you know, well, we don't all have them, but many of us have these magic, you know, smartphones that can take photographs. This is an example of Christ Church's online page. And listen, I know those people, right? I know the people under the donation tile there, and that's our altar. So when it says I can dedicate Sunday altar flowers in memory of a loved one or in celebration of a milestone, to me, it is a much more personal gift for me to make, and makes it more inspirational to me. So that is another
I couldn't agree more.
things. Yeah, this is another thing that, you know, it's not just enough. It's always, it's very important to be using the tool. We have to have the tool. But it's not just enough to have the tool. It's also figuring out, how can we tweak it? How can we improve it? How can we make it a little bit more attractive, a little bit more compelling for our donors? Okay, we've talked about QR codes in the past. or at least I've talked about QR codes to anybody who will listen to me, because I do think they can be just so handy. A QR code is a machine scannable image. It's the little funny little black box up here that can instantly be read using a smartphone camera. You set it up. There are free QR code generators, and there are some that you can pay a subscription to. The example I have here is, I took it from my church's Sunday bulletin, and they use one that has a subscription. It's like $8 a month. There's no need to, you don't have to do that. They like it because it does provide some services, like they can track who's used it, who has scanned it, and, unique visitors and things, and also can put their logo in it. But if you can use Shopify.com as a free QR code generator. So the point of the QR code is that it will take you directly to whatever web page that is. This page happens to be, I tried it before. So if somebody wants to try it with your phone, you can probably, just from this transmission, you can probably make it come up. It'll take you to the Christchurch Stewardship, to the giving landing page. But you could be as specific as having, if there were an article, or maybe you had a brief story about your feeding ministry, and you were looking for additional gifts for that ministry, you could have it go directly to your feeding ministry Vanco site, right? So it takes away those barriers for people to having to think about, this is such a, I'm really inspired by this story. I want to know more about it. So you can use the QR code to learn more about it, but also then to give.
I think that's a great point, and it is that given the moment, top of mind kind of scenario. Somebody had posed a question earlier about the tiles, and I probably should have prefaced that with that tile is just a term we use for the individual donation options. It's just because it looks like a tile, I guess. But again, the QR code has become very, very prevalent in today's society. I've referred probably 100 people to Shopify. We're now kind of doing our own, again, assistance through our client support team. So if you guys want to add that, it really just provides you another access point. And to Cynthia's point, you can pinpoint it as much as you want. It can be the entire donation page, or if it's a specific effort that you're looking to support, you can have that QR code directed directly back to that.
I think we have churches who are doing this. If you are, I'm encouraging, or I'm lifting you up. And if you're not, I'm encouraging you to use it in your bulletin at the offertory. For folks, especially who have online viewers, we can refer to it as it can be referred. This is something where it transcends, I think, for making a gift online as well as making a gift while they're sitting in the pew. This is what, our priest says, your faithful generosity is what makes everything that we do possible. You can make an offering today in church, and by using the QR code in the bulletin, or go on the website. So the folks at home and the folks in the pews hear that. They both have access, because they both have access to the service bulletin, to going directly to the Vanco page. Do not neglect to do good and to share what you have, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God. Which leads us to online worshipers. And I know this can be something that can be a bit of a challenge. There are ways to increase giving among online worshipers. It's not a magic bullet. There are plenty, there will be people who will take a passive attitude to just watching your service. Maybe they're just checking you out and comparing you, but that's not everybody. And we can do things that can maximize the chance of getting folks to support our ministry and mission. First of all, it goes back to the very first thing we said: prominently display a clear call to action. we can't really complain if people don't give to us, if we don't make it super easy for them to give. So again, make sure that the website and online platforms have a prominent and visible give button. It's important really in online worship for us as church leaders to help create a sense of community among those online folks too. You can do that in language. I mean, you have to think about how to do this, but emphasize the importance of giving to support the church's mission and vision. Connect with those viewers on Facebook. If if you're on Facebook, that is with with people who are actually checking who's viewing, and with chat, etc. Connect with them to create a sense of community around the church's mission and values. Again, make online giving easy and accessible without requiring too many steps or clicks. One thing that I think I almost feel like we have sort of the sense of online worshipers as being online only worshipers as, not having a longer relationship with us. We really want to, if we provide regular updates and, let's call them impact reports, that can think of that community more as a community, not just sort of viewers who were just happen to stop by. We want to keep folks engaged by providing regular updates on the church's activities, projects, impact, share stories and testimonials that demonstrate the impact. So number 5 is offering incentives, and that's kind of a crazy word for church people, but when I say incentives, I think of one of our churches where the clergy is great at just telling people online and to please share their name and email address so that he can make sure that they get the church's newsletter. It's really pretty simple because people want to, if they're spending that time with you, they want to know a little bit more. Once you have the newsletter, you can be doing what we just said with the regular updates and impact reports. These are ways really of thinking of those folks as not just sort of passive viewers. We want them as engaged as possible, but we have to sort of take the responsibility for getting them engaged.
Yeah, if I could add to that, because I saw this firsthand over the course of the last 3 years in kind of this change in culture and how potentially it's going to benefit the church in the long term, is that what the pandemic caused is a couple of things. One, it really accelerated a lot of conversations that had been kind of kicked down the road for a number of years, with a lot of churches realizing online giving is no longer a luxury or a novelty for the big churches or the new churches. It is an absolute necessity for the lifeblood of any church out there. It also made us realize there's a lot of people out there, due to a variety of circumstances, that aren't able to connect in the church in the standardized way. It could be in terms of proximity or life demands, work demands, health demands, whatever the case may be. But now with kind of that 2-tiered scenario of the actual in-person worship service and then the streaming service, we're able to access all those kind of peripheral people that are now kind of becoming more a part of the community, even though in a different kind of sense. And the vast majority of them want to contribute as well, just as much as people that are in the pews. So really embrace that and make sure that Cynthia keeps bringing up the point accessibility. And to me, that's the biggest thing. With that link scenario, that link is not beholden to just be on the website. It can be on your Facebook page. It could be in an electronic newsletter. You could email it out to the entire parish. It's really just that, an access point. So again, with that QR codes, all the other things we have really kind of opens things up and can really make your program much more robust.
And we're gonna move into Q&A in like 1.5 second, but first I want to point out, including links to your giving page on Facebook too, right? We want to make sure that many of our folks, I look at the websites and they can be kind of static, but the Facebook pages are places where you can have more current news, right? And you can have stories about ministry. You can have the, the latest uh, drive that kids had. You can have that story, and then you can include a link back to the Vanco page, so that you've got your church Vanco page, so that again, you're sort of providing a way to tap right back, to use my generosity to tap right back into the giving page. You can then deliberately create posts on your Facebook page that provide information about online giving, provide that direct link. And it gets us more in the habit, I think, then, of talking about not just our ministry, but how our parishioners and others can learn more about our ministries, but also can help and become a part of our ministry. And then we can provide impact, tell them about the impact that they had. It's a virtuous circle. Okay, with that, we're going to switch over to questions and answers, but I have this slide up. I want to keep the conversation going and remind folks that if you're not already a subscriber to the newsletter, Stewardship Matters, send me an email. I'll make sure you get on that list. We do have a Facebook page, the Stewardship folks at EDN. So visit that and add stuff, because we don't add enough stuff to it. We're as bad as everybody else. And then the Stewardship teaching team can provide single parish or small group coaching. We can go through, your own challenges with online giving. Reach out to me, to Ross, or to Pat, and we'll be happy to make that happen. Okay, there we go.
You can also add my contact information to that, as I would love to assist anybody that's currently with us, or more importantly, churches that aren't using anything or are using something else.
Okay. What can we tell? Let's see, chat. Have we gotten some? Oh, AC. So did we talk about ACH, that Annie asked the question about ACH?
Yes.
Peter, did we answer that question?
I answered some of the questions directly to those who asked in the chat.
Peter, do you want to talk a little bit about the how the rate difference, transaction prices, and sort of the basics of the Vanco? Why don't you actually tell the basics? Because I think there still can be some confusion about, one of the reasons traditionally people did not do online giving was what? They didn't want to pay, they thought it was too expensive. They didn't want to, why would I pay, if someone is paying with credit card, why would I pay some per transaction fee and a monthly fee and all that, when they just write me a check? I don't have to pay anything. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a very good point. Because to preface this, I grew up in the church. My grandfather was a Lutheran minister, and I know that churches, for lack of a better word, tend to be thrifty. And it took a while for them to realize that, granted, you may be paying a small percentage, but it's going to be a small percentage off a larger bottom line, in realizing that this is going to plug donation gaps. And so that kind of morphed into conversations with Sam Reckford about 3.5 years ago, and oddly enough came to fruition shortly before the pandemic, where we put an arrangement together for all the member parishes to get some very aggressive preferred pricing and really make it an effective option for all member churches, because it doesn't include any startup fees. There's no contract for any of our 25,000 churches. We work month to month. There's no cancellation fee. So any church could come up with the most inane reason to leave us, and they wouldn't be penalized, yet we still maintain about a 97 to 98% retention rate. On top of that, the preferred pricing doesn't include any monthly fee. So there literally is no overhead to any member church. And because of that, it creates a risk-free environment. And then the processing and transaction fees are greatly reduced from our standardized rates. So in realizing that that can be compounded even further, because each and every time a donor goes into the system and sets up a one-time or recurring donation with our new system, and this may be something to nudge you in that direction, they are presented the option to pay it forward and cover those minimal processing and transaction fees. And I can tell you, the last church core giving study we did in the midst of the pandemic, Amongst their findings, it showed that approximately 2 out of every 3 donors is electing to pay it forward. So essentially, you can bring your cost down to pennies on the dollar and increase your overall contributions, because there are existing gaps. There's studies done that show that even the most loyal attendee is going to, on average, miss 10 to 12 services during the course of the year. Let's say at $50 a visit, that's $500 to $600 that potentially the church is never going to see. I'm sure this is same in the Episcopal world, but in the Lutheran world, we had a faction that we called the CEOs, the Christmas and Easter only families. And subsequently, they're not of the mindset to say, hey, we have to stop at the ATM, or everybody pick a room. We're going to tear the house apart, see if we can find a checkbook. More often than not, offertory occurs, and they're all kind of pointing fingers at each other. It says, your fault, your fault, your fault.
Mhm.
Whereas with online giving, it's in the moment. It's there. It's in their hands. They have the ability to do so. And that's where you see the bulk of the increase. And on top of that, because people are able to budget more effectively and they have a running record of their donations, they tend to donate larger amounts when doing it electronically, as opposed to, I can't remember what I wrote the last check for. I don't even know how many checks I wrote. Granted, that's not going to be the case for everyone. I would probably be that person. But it does gravitate towards larger single-time contributions and a much more regulated cadence.
And they get a receipt for right away.
Every time you make a transaction and make a one-time or recurring donation, immediately you get an itemized emailed receipt.
And I would like to ask Mr. Johnson. I noticed on the weekly reports, it will say that the person gave ACH by ACH or by MS. What is MS?
Yeah. MS is just another kind of banking term for merchant services. That's just referring to a card donation. And you can call me Peter. My dad is Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
So that's a credit card. That's a credit card
Yeah.
payment.
Yeah. The reason
Yep.
I asked was because I noticed that if you do the ACH, no fees come out. But if you do the MS, fees come out. So that's by credit or debit card that they're making.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So for credit card donations, the fees come right off the top as the card companies are involved. And so you receive the net deposit, usually within about 48 hours. With ACH contributions, you receive the amount in full and then are invoiced at the end of the month. But one thing that's very unique about Vanco and something to take into consideration is that we are not only the online giving provider, but we are our own payment processor. So 99% of the other vendors out there are using a third-party vendor on the back end, unbeknownst to their client churches, whereas Vanco is a one-stop shop. So that provides 2 distinct advantages. One is pricing stability, as we're not beholden at the mercy of a third-party vendor jacking up their rates, as we are that third-party vendor. Secondarily, it allows us to get the deposits into your bank accounts in a much more rapid fashion. We are not licensed to hold money. We don't think it's morally right to hold money. So again, credit card donations, even though the information flows real time, you're receiving that in your bank account within about 48 hours. For those ACH withdrawals, it's more real time. Anything received, I'll go on your clock, anything received before 4 o'clock Eastern is batched and deposited that evening. Anything after 4 is batched and deposited the following day. And we do deposits daily, Monday through Friday.
Annie, I saw that you had a question about the tiles. Did we answer that for you? Is there anybody here who's using the tiles right now? Yes, there is. I know there is. There's a few of you.
That is.
Yeah, we are at St. Paul's, and we've been able to set it up so we have a diaper program. You can give directly to diapers. You could do Super Cafe. You could do Altar Guild, and we have used the photographs that we have, and I mean, we were using the old form. This was all done by our parish administrator, and he found it very easy to do. And so, I would encourage you to do that because it personalizes
Mhm.
really personalizes the giving page, and and again, as Cynthia said, it gives you an opportunity to say what the funds are for.
When you said
Yep.
that about a diaper drive, I bet I don't know, at least I felt like picking up my phone and making it a gift to like, I can just see how compelling that would be, right? To quickly make a gift to a diaper drive.
Yeah.
Because it's a gift you wouldn't have thought to do, because it's easy to make and you're inspired to do it.
Thank you. You can go, you
One
can do that, Cynthia. Just go to the
All right. Well,
website.
I'm
We'd be
busy
more than
right now,
happy
but
to.
yeah. Robin, you had
one other.
oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to tack one thing on here, and then we'll get to Robin's question. Is that the donation page is kind of in air quotes, as it's not just strictly limited to charitable contributions. It can also include payment options as well, as that's kind of the first point of differentiation when you set up a tile. Is going to ask you, is it for a contribution or a payment? So anything that involves a financial transaction can be included on that page, providing a little bit more focus for you. And then in terms of those year-end statements, it's already made the differentiation for tax purposes between a payment and a donation. So it would kind of streamline that process on the back end for the administrators as well.
Right. Where did Robin go?
I'm right here.
Okay, there you are.
I
Robin.
just wanted to say that actually, my priest and I did this yesterday, and we set up all the tiles. We spoke with Peter, we spoke with you, and it was a very simple process. It took us less than an hour, and that was among, chit chat. So this was so educational now, because as we set all that up, now we can do even more tweaking to it. We did use some personal pictures. We did start using, our parishioners don't even really know this yet. So we're going to hope to roll this out, this week and move forward with it to help everybody segue from, we were using another vendor and we just saw the prices just were not enticing at all, and cutting into what we could possibly do. So I would encourage people who are interested in doing it to really try it. Like I said, turned out to be a very easy experience. As soon as we get our give buttons more prominence on our social media pages, and our bulletins, I think we'll see a great change. But don't be intimidated at all. It was really quite simple.
That's great. Thank you. I saw, actually, there was a chat question, which is dear to my heart. This is the question about which is better to say, Jonathan is asking, give, donate, give now, donate now, or something else.
Well, the nice thing is that each tile can be unique. So dependent upon the nature of the tile, you can put whatever you want on there. So think of each tile as its own little business, and you can have different donation frequencies available, obviously different verbiage. Right. You can include a social sharing aspect on it. You can put a text box on it. So it really is, it's kind of your prerogative as to what you think would be best. It also allows you to customize the verbiage. If any of the items on the dropdown that have been pre-populated don't resonate, you can make up your own.
I do think, though, I would say, because I've been referring to it as the give button, I generally think that I like it if we call it give. I think giving, for your on your main navigation bar that we talked about. I say this because even though the diocesan site has donate, I think actually for a church, I think give is a more faithful word to be for your main button. But I'm not sure that there's research on that. I think donate to me as your main button sounds a little bit more nonprofit-y. Gail, is that another question, or is your hand still hanging?
Yes. What is the difference between giving a donation and a payment?
So that's all based on tax code. The process is going to be identical for the donor or payer, but in terms of kind of the back end information, when they send out year-end statements, they have to break out the charitable contributions from the actual payments. Things that result in something tangible or a purchase or something. So your year-end statement is in alignment with the tax code. That's really the only differentiation. And I'm going to answer one more quick question here, Cynthia. I apologize,
Yep.
but I'm kind of up against the clock.
Yep.
Somebody had mentioned the percentages. Obviously, with the program we have in place with you guys, I want to make sure everybody's aware of it. As I mentioned before, no upfront costs, no back-end costs, no monthly fee. For Visa, MasterCard, and Discover, it is 2.5% of the amount of the contribution and a 30-cent transaction fee. Conversely, for ACH, it's only 0.5% and 30 cents. And it is as aggressive as any program we got out there. I commend both Sam and Cynthia for putting that in, and more importantly, for continuing to kind of walk the line and really assist the parishes throughout this 3+ years of working together. And anything I can do to support that, I would do as I'm doing right now.
Thank you, Peter. That's awesome. And we've
Peter,
been,
before you go, could you please put your contact information in the chat so everybody has it?
good point.
Thanks.
We can, so Peter, you're going to put that in, and then you can,
Yeah.
I think you have another call you have to take. But we
Yeah, I
can
just saw
certainly-
the gentleman I'm doing it for. I just saw him join. I'm like, I'm not there yet.
Annie, did you say something about the giving gives? Did you have a question in here? Whether a big give was better than that little word giving in the navigation bar. Yeah, I think it's, I mean, give or giving, I think are fine. I think,
I thought that, and when you showed us that slide of the,
Yeah.
the row that's sort of like our mission or whatever,
Mhm.
giving at the end, I think is missable,
yes, it's in a great, it's in the top nav bar. That's the key thing. But because we really do have folks who you have to scroll and look for, and even if you make it a bright color and you have to scroll for it. Bye, Peter. Thank you so much. We
Bye.
appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate the chance. You take care.
You,
Bye now.
you too.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Peter.
Yeah, if you have to scroll for it, you're going to lose people.
One of the other things that's good about Venco is that when you get that statement after you've made your monthly payment, it says thank you. And as you know, one of the things that we have said is you cannot thank people enough. So every time they get a thank you note, it's
Mhm.
it's automatic.
Right.
So it's just reinforcing your appreciation. And it says that it doesn't come from Venco. It says St. Paul's Church. Thank you very much for blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's automated, right? It's,
yeah,
we
it's
can't,
automated.
right.
It's automated. So it's not something that it's just done, but it comes from the church and it just reinforces the church's appreciation for the donation. It's more than you get when you put it. I mean, people put things in the plate. We never got thanks.
No,
When you think about it, I mean, we did, but
right,
we didn't technically get a thank you note every time
Right.
you put something.
right.
This
right.
just reinforces the appreciation of the support of the mission of the church.
Annie, the question about the tiles, that they exist on your website. So it's a page on your website that has these tiles that you've sort of created. So when you're on Facebook and you're on All Saints Leonia and you have a link to your, and somebody clicks on the Facebook post, it'll take them to your tiles, to that, whatever that URL is that you've set up. That's how it works. So it's really very, moves you from Facebook right to that page.
And you can't put a QR code on Facebook, can you?
I think you can actually. I mean, you don't really have to, because, if you're on Facebook, you're going to be able to click on it, right? A link, it's the same as a link. You know what I mean? So I think QR codes are more appropriate for printed stuff, but what about the fact that what about the fact that seeing someone put a check in the plate on a Sunday morning may encourage others to do the same? Has that been a big issue? Man, we absolutely, we want to keep as many people putting checks in the plate as possible. We're happy to have people put checks in the plate, and it does encourage folks to do the same, but not everybody wants to. Now, there are, and we've shown this before. I don't know if any of the churches, I think, Pat, do you remember churches who are doing this, who have the card that you put in the plate that shows that you made an online gift?
We've done it. We've done it up until the pandemic at St. George's. We had little laminated cards because so many people had already been doing the online giving. More and more people are not used. I don't even know where my checkbook is.
Right.
Fewer and fewer people have even carried cash.
Right.
So we had these little laminated cards that were in the pews with the hymnals and the books of common prayer. When the plate came around, if you had signed up for your automatic payment to come out of Vancouver, you don't have a check or cash. You would just take one of those laminated cards, put it in the plate. It's very sweetly decorated. I gave electronically or I gave online.
Right.
And then this way, there is a physical item that's being put in the plate, so the plate doesn't look so empty.
Right. Right. Right.
Once we cleaned out all the pews during the pandemic, they were one of the first things to go. So we're going to have to print new ones.
But I think it does, to Jonathan's point. I think that it gives the person that keeps some of that social sense of being a part of a community.
Well,
Definitely.
and for some people, it's an important thing that they are offering something up on
Right.
Sundays, even though they may be doing it's a tangible presentation of their commitment to the mission of the church.
Right.
By being able to put a card in, it may not be for anybody, but you know what? Again, it makes it easy. And it
Right.
supports wherever people are. So if you have people that need that, how hard is it to provide that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At St. James Hackettstown, we have a couple baskets near the entrances that have those cards. And when people pick up their bulletin, they can also pick up one of those cards that I give electronically, and they can put it in the offering plate.
That's great. I think it's a perfect way of sort of merging the two traditions, and it's not discarding one, it's kind of merging the two.
And it makes your ushers feel a little bit more useful, especially now that they're on videotape, when they're walking around and it looks like people are ignoring them and they're walking in front of the camera with an empty plate.
Gives them something.
Yes.
I really think too that I was talking when Pat said that about the diapers. I really do think that this having this ability to connect people with a way to give to something is, it's something we really could take advantage of in a really positive way. Because there are, we're all members of our church, and there are probably, for everybody here, certain ministries that you're particularly, that really fill your heart, and you're pledgers. So there's that, right? And, and that's an easy way to fulfill your pledge online. But there might be other ministries that you really care strongly about that, have needs during the year, that learning about it and, knowing that whether it's altar flowers or the diaper drive or something for B&G, it makes it so easy then to respond to it. And if we are intrigued by it, I think our other members might be too.
Well, even if you had a food ministry, where you are collecting food or funds to support a food pantry, it just makes it easy to do.
Right.
Gail had a question about how does one get a QR code?
Oh, I put it in the, I'm gonna send that out, but you can go to, the free one is, you have to set it up. But the free one that Peter was talking about is on Shopify.com. And I'll send out the slides and they'll have the links. But you basically, you just you're gonna have to log in, create an account, and then you put in you copy your URL from the, whatever your giving page is, and you pop it in there, and then you press a magic button and it makes a QR code for you. And then you save it as a JPEG or what's that other thing? The other
PNG
kind of
file.
PNG file. And then you copy that and you put that in your printed document. It's simpler than I just made it sound, but.
I have a question.
Sure.
How do you, since we have not done this, and if you want to start, how do you then educate your congregation? What's the best way to do that?
Well, I think it depends on the congregation, but what I would say is as many ways as you can. One way I think that would be really smart would be to start with include the vestry. Right. At the next vestry meeting, maybe take 5 minutes and say, okay, we just did this. Everybody pull out your phone. Let's walk through how we make a gift, how we log in, how we do that. Right. So you have you have people, lay leaders in your congregation then who are going to know and have some confidence about it. You could have an adult forum afterwards. You could make announcements included in your announcements. Once it's set up, it's super easy to use for people. They just have to try it and do it. So it's more the, raising awareness and getting them to try it. So I would think about different ways and different ministries, if different ministries have different groups who are really active, you might think of ways that it could be really supportive of that ministry and then get them excited about it. Is that an idea?
And one of the things you could do is have, when you do roll it out and people on the vestry besides you decide they're going to do it, they can stand up. You could give a testimony, but somebody else could too. On how easy it is to use.
And don't be afraid to reach out to other churches in your regional ministry network and just tap them. They've done it, ask for their help. And they can show you and maybe demonstrate it for you. That's why they're there.
I will never get used to Zoom. Never. It's just so funny. Because everybody's on mute and it's just funny. And which is, if everyone were loud, it would be, we can't hear, but it is funny to be talking to Hollywood squares. So you all have been great. Just a reminder, you can reach out. We'd love to work with you. I'll certainly, I will be sending out a copy of this presentation and I'll so everybody, and we had a bunch of folks who said they couldn't attend tonight, so they'll get it too. Peter really is great to work with. They're just as nice as can be. They're Minnesota people. They're just awesome. So I don't be worried about dealing with the Vanco people. And anyway, we'll help you in any way we can. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you much.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Good night.
You too. Good night.
Thank you.